Hello my students, how are you all? I am doing good too. I am doing this lecture online because of the situation that we are in between of, and the best thing one can do in today's day is to stay put where we are, and I am doing the same thing, but we are not going to compromise on the lectures. We are going to do today the Yogasutras of Sage Patanjali. See, we are doing this page. Okay, I'm going to upload this page. Okay. So we're going to do Sage Patanjali today. As you know, Sage Patanjali is my favorite sage. He has written the 195 Yoga Sutras on yoga. Yoga Sutras means, yoga means Samadhi. Yoga also means awareness. Okay, the day you all decided to stay back, you all became yogis for me. These exams and all are of actually no use, to me, in the sense that you have already proven your mettle. You are yogis. You are true, in the true spirit, you all are yogis. Okay, but let's see what Sage Patanjali has to say. So Sage Patanjali, what he did is he wrote the Yoga Sutras. Now, as you know, sutras means coded way of writing anything. Okay, so he wrote this 195 coded theorems or coded formulas so that we can lead a good life, as well as we can reach to the heights of spirituality. Okay, so spiritual progress can take place. Now we are not looking at the last, maybe the final goal of self realization, but we are looking at making our life best. So what do we do that? For that we see the overview of these Yoga Sutras, get a flavor, as I always say, get a flavor so that we can get 2 scoops of ice cream, isn't it? So in the same way, let's see this flavor like an overview, a bird's eye view of Sage Patanjali's 195 Yoga Sutras. So when he wrote these Yoga Sutras, already yoga was prevalent, and the information and knowledge of yoga was already prevalent. So he is not the founder of the yoga as such, but what he did was he read so many books, and he was already, they say that he was avatar of Sheshanag. Okay, so he already had so much of knowledge with him, and hence he compiled all this knowledge, and he brought this in form of this Yoga Sutras for the benefit of mankind. Okay, so let's see the mythological background of Sage Patanjali. This Yoga Sutras has been formulated in between 350 BCE 500 BCE. As I said, that he had not done any copyright of his work, and hence there is no place where he has written the date. Okay, in fact, in the 195 Yoga Sutra, he has nowhere mentioned his name also. Like, he has never said Patanjali also. So, this was compiled between 350 BCE to 500 BCE. The mythology that goes behind this sage is that there was one lady, her name was Gonika. She was yogi, and she didn't have any children. So one day when she was praying to the sun god, she said, "Oh God, I have so much of knowledge, but I cannot share it with anyone. I have no children. Please give me one child so that I can give this knowledge to my baby." And then she had water in in her hands, and she was going to offer it to the sun god. At that time, she saw something wiggling in her palms, and then she saw that there was a human and half snake form which was there lying in her hand, which jumped down and said, Ma, give me the knowledge of yoga. Okay, Patanjali means, Pata means in folded palms or palms, and Anjali, Pata means to fall, and Anjali means palms. Okay, so something that's fallen in your palms. So Patanjali is that which fell into the palms of Mother Gonika. Now, Mother Gonika gave all the information to Sage Patanjali, as well as Sage Patanjali read all the Vedas, etc., Upanishads, and compiled this 195 Yoga Sutras for us. And hence, what do we say? We say this prayer to Sage Patanjali, which is the prayer, Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjali Ranatosmi. This prayer in fact is said so that we can thank Patanjali for his 3 books. Okay. Now remember, action can be done at 3 levels. It can be done at mental level, that's thought level, at the speech level, and through our body. So if we have to go to the heights of spiritual progress, we have to purify our 3 levels of action. So at the mental level, where purification is required, he wrote the book Yogasutras. So Yogasutras to purify the chitta vrittis, to purify the impurities of the mind stuff. Okay. The second book that he has written is the book that will help in purification of our speech. So he has written a commentary on Panini's work on grammar. So he has written a voluminous book on that. And the third book is to remove the impurities of the body, and that means he has given Charak Samhita, where he has written the book on Ayurveda. Okay. So these 3 are the books to go to, so the main source of books to go to when you want to read something for the mind, when you want to read something about grammar, and when you want to read something about Ayurveda. So since he has written these 3 books, we are saying this prayer Yogena Chittasya to thank sage Patanjali for his 3 work, to remove the 3 impurities of speech as well as of the thoughts and action. Then let's see the chapterization. So Patanjali, what he did is that all the sutras that were related to Samadhi, okay, absorption in the object of meditation to reach higher levels of Samadhi, all those sutras he placed in the first chapter. So in the first chapter there are 51 sutras and it is called as Samadhi path. The second chapter is called as Sadhana path. Sadhana means action. So second chapter is Sadhana path, and Sadhana path he placed 55 sutras. Now this is basically for layman like all of us, where we are starting our yoga practices, okay, in terms of taming our mind. So this is the second chapter, and the third chapter he spoke about supernormal powers, and he called it as Vibhuti path, and he placed 55 sutras in the third chapter. The fourth chapter is the Kaivalya path, and this is the smallest chapter, and he has placed 34 sutras in the fourth chapter, okay, and it speaks about liberation. Now let's see an overview of these chapters. First chapter, as I said, speaks basically of different types of Samadhi. He also speaks about the definition of yoga. He also speaks about the 5 types of modifications of mind, and he also speaks about the obstacles that one faces when we are in this process of meditation. Okay. So we will be doing these obstacles when we will actually see Bhagavad Gita. I will try and relate Bhagavad Gita and Yogasutras when I am talking about the obstacles. Okay. For timing, let's now focus on the first chapter. So the first chapter, the name of which is Samadhi path, lies the definition of yoga. So in the first sutra he says Atha Yoga Anushasanam, means now starts the discipline of yoga. So now starts the discipline means at least now start yoga, at least now bring discipline into yoga, of yoga into you. And if you are not disciplined, now is the time to let go of this Yoga Sutras. Do not read any further. So it's quite a challenging sutra. In the first instance itself is saying that now begins the discipline of yoga or science of yoga. That is the first sutra of the Yoga Sutras. Okay. In sutra number 1.2 he says Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That is the definition of yoga, where he says that yoga is the cessation or stoppage of the modification of the mind. When we close our eyes and we just let loose, the thoughts engulf our mind. Thoughts can be of the past, it can be of the future. Okay, it can lead us to depression, it can lead us to anxiety. In the now, as I always say, is bliss. Okay, so Patanjali is saying become aware of this, become aware of this n number of thoughts that we are having, and do something to reduce this modification of mind, and he calls that as practice. Practice means reduction of the number of thoughts. Whatever you do to reduce this number of thoughts in the right way is called as yoga. So yoga's definition according to the Yoga Sutra is reduction of the modification of mind. As simple as the definition sounds, it's very difficult. One has to become aware to be able to catch our mind when it is into thoughts. Okay, so when it is into non-voluntary thoughts, if you are able to catch it, nip it in the bud, as it is, it's going to think, right? So graft a good thought, graft a positive thought, graft a thought that will help you. Okay, so removing or nipping it in the bud also requires awareness, and that comes with practice. Then he says in Sutra number 1.3, Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Only when there are no modification of mind can you actually know your true self. As I say, meditation, who am I truly, who I am truly, So that thing will start coming to your mind when modifications will become less. So when you're involved in a movie, for example, what happens? There is a lot of things that's going on and you're involved in it. Only when the movie stops, what do you think? Now I am myself, and now I should get up from this theater and I should go home. You truly come to your own nature. All these masks, all these titles that we have, for example, of mother, of brother-in-law, of a student, of a teacher, everything falls off. The movie stops, and then we realize who we truly are. Okay, and then in Sutra number 1.4, he says vritti sarupyam itaratra. He says when you are not in yoga, that means when there is a lot of modification of mind, at that time you become one with the modification of the mind. Okay, so if the mind is showing a happy movie, you become happy. If the mind is showing a sad movie, you are sad. If your mind is showing a very anxious moment, then you are anxious. Okay, so you are never in equilibrium when you are becoming one with the modification of the mind. Okay, then Patanjali is saying that these modification of mind are either going to give you sorrow or they are not going to give you sorrow. Okay, so modification of mind is not going to give you happiness in any way. Okay, so in 1.5 he says these modifications are going to either give you sorrow or they are not going to give you sorrow. Okay, and then he goes ahead and in 1.6 he says there are 5 types of modification of mind. See, when you think of the modification of mind as thoughts, and if there are thousands of thoughts, it is difficult to regulate thousands of thoughts, isn't it? But if I say that there are going to be 5 things that you have to be aware of, then it becomes a little bit manageable. 5 is manageable. Okay, so then he puts them in 5 categories. He says these modifications of the mind are of 5 categories. And what are the 5 categories? He says they are right knowledge, wrong knowledge, imagination, experience that we have in sleep, and memory. Okay, so when you're listening to this and if you're getting right knowledge, that is the right knowledge. Okay, wrong knowledge is when suppose you're stepping on a rope and you feel it's a snake. Okay, then the whole sympathetic nervous system comes up, right? What happens with the sympathetic nervous system? Your heart starts beating fast, pupils open, the body is ready for flight or fight. Okay, and the body is perspiring. Okay, there is a little bit of urination also maybe. The whole point is even wrong knowledge can completely transform and get our sympathetic to in a running motion. But if someone at that time flashes a light and we see, oh, this is not a rope, this is a snake, we saw it with right knowledge, and with right knowledge what happens? The parasympathetic takes over and we return to normal condition, we return to our equilibrium position. Okay, so Patanjali says that there is right knowledge, you can modify as per the right knowledge. Your mind modifies also when you are given a situation where there is wrong knowledge. He also says that in imagination world also, like, oh, what will happen of the world tomorrow, etc. You are going on in your imagination world, that also will lead to modification of mind. He says when you are sleeping also, there is memory of sleep. So next day when you get up, you say, I had a good sleep. So that means there was an experience. If there was no experience, there is not going to be memory. Okay, so sleep also he is saying there is modification of mind. And finally he says there is memory of all these 4 modification of mind, and there is memory of memory also. So this memory is basically that which is conditioning us and doesn't let us see things as they are. They're not letting us be in the now. So memory, I think, is basically the spoil sport. Okay, so you have to be aware of these 5 things: right knowledge, wrong knowledge, imagination, sleep, and memory. And the main thing that is actually going to help us in our spiritual progress, help us to be a yogi, is right knowledge. Okay, so he has mentioned this, all these names, and he's given information about all this modification of mind. And in sutra number 1.12, Patanjali says abhyasa vairagyabhya tannirodha. That means practice and detachment. Practice and detachment of the fruit is very much required to keep the modification of mind to the least. Okay, so all this is placed in the first chapter, and it is very interesting where he says that you go from seedless samadhi, from seed samadhi to seedless samadhi. Okay, all this is placed in the first chapter, but the most important is the obstacles which I am going to deal with when we are going to do Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so that was the overview of the first chapter. Now let's go to the second chapter. Second chapter is very important for us. It's called a Sadhana path, and it has 55 sutras in it. Now Sadhana path has a concept called Kriya Yoga. So sutra number 2.1, that means second chapter, first sutra itself, it says about Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is given the definition: tapaha swadhyay ishwar pranidhanani kriya yoga. Tapaha means austerity. Any action that you do is called as tapaha. Swadhyay means self-study, and Ishwar Pranidhanani means surrender. Now this is very important, as I say, for personality development. How? See, every day do some kind of action. Okay, now if you're a yogi, do your asanas, do your pranayam regularly. That keeps you in equilibrium. Okay, how do you understand what is the true nature of yourself? Do study. So when you do this moksha shastra, these type of text, old texts, okay, which is talking about Jeev Jagat and Ishwar, which speaks about the being, which speaks about the composition of the world, evolution of the world, and which speaks about the concept of the higher self, God, grace, etc. When you read such books, you understand who you truly are, leaving aside the titles. Okay, so self study every day is very important, and surrender. Whatever we can do, we are doing in our austerity in action, and whatever is not in our hands, are we able to surrender it to the higher self? Okay, so we do our work and we do not claim the results, do not claim the fruits. So if we are able to do Kriya Yoga every day, we will be able to maintain our equilibrium, and we will be able to also take decisions very well in our life. Okay, so this is one sutra which we must imbibe every day in our everyday life, so that we are at equilibrium. It's like maintaining our air conditioning inside very well, so that whatever happens in the outside doesn't affect us. So that is sutra number 2.1, which is a very, very practical sutra. Also there is sutra on Ashtang, and that we are going to do that we are going to do separately when we are doing our Ashtang, because that is a very important part of the second chapter. Okay, second chapter also deals with the angas. So in the Ashtanga, yama, niyam, asan, pranayam and pratyahar are the external limbs, and so these external limbs are placed in the second chapter. And the next three, that is dharana, dhyan and samadhi, these three are the internal limbs, and they are placed in the third chapter. Okay, so the third chapter is called as Vibhuti path, and in Vibhuti path there are 55 sutras, and in the Vibhuti path, first 3 sutras are given for dharana, dhyan and samadhi, that is concentration, meditation and becoming one with the object of meditation, that is samadhi. Okay, and whatever you get because of concentration, meditation and samadhi put together is called as samyama. Samyama means the one of all these 3, the power of all these 3, and this power gives us various supernormal powers. Okay, and these supernormal powers are completely listed out in the third chapter. Okay, so now close your eyes. Let's see these Vibhutis of second chapter and third chapter. We will deal with 10 Vibhutis. Okay, 10 supernormal powers. So what you do is close your eyes. Now focus on the navel center. We have done this before also. Focus on the navel center. It says Nabhi Chakre Kaya Vyuha Jnanam. When you focus on the navel center, when you meditate, when you concentrate, meditate, and when this becomes your object of meditation, and when there are absolutely no thoughts and you become one with this, when you focus on your navel center, you know the composition of your whole body. This is one of the supernormal powers which Patanjali is talking about. Okay, keep your eyes closed. Now, focus on your heart. Hridaye Chitta Samvit. When you focus on your heart, you know your mind stuff. Hridaye Chitta Samvit. When you focus on your heart center, you know the contents of your mind. Now, focus in the sternum area, between the ribs, below the throat, about 4 inches down. Focus on that area. Kurmanadyam Sthiryam. There is a tortoise shaped nadi there. Kurmanadyam Sthiryam. When you focus on that, there is steadiness. In today's world, whatever is happening, what we require the most right now is steadiness. So experience for yourself whether you are able to focus on that steadiness. So Kurmanadyam Sthiryam. When you focus on the tortoise shaped nadi in the chest area, the supernormal power the yogi gets is steadiness. Kantakupe Kshut Pipasa Nivrittihi. When you focus on your throat center, hunger and thirst is taken care of. Kantakupe, like focus on the throat center, and it will give you relief from thirst and hunger. Kantakupe Kshut Pipasa Nivrittihi. Murdha Jyotishi Siddha Darshanam. Now focus on the center of your head, top of the head, 1 inch above. Focus on a bright flame. Murdha Jyotishi Siddha Darshanam. When you focus on this, you get the grace of the learned souls. As if you are getting into their network of people who are highly learned. Murdha Jyotishi Siddha Darshanam. Slowly open your eyes. So we finished with 5 supernormal powers that are mentioned in the third chapter, and we will do another 5 supernormal power when we are doing our Ashtanga, and it is the supernormal power when we do our yamas and niyamas. Okay. So in the third chapter, as I said, the sutras dealt is the concentration of meditation and on Samadhi. So Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi, the internal limbs are talked about in the third chapter, and what are the supernormal powers that we get is also spoken of in the third chapter. In the fourth chapter, the name of which is Kaivalya Path, there are 34 sutras. This is the smallest chapter but most complicated chapter. Okay, it's called as Kaivalya Path. Kaivalya means liberation. So when we speak about liberation, we have to speak about the karmas. Okay, so the gathered karmas, what should be done with them, how should the karmas be reduced, okay, and then how we should take it to zero, so that this cycle of life and death etc. ends and one achieves self liberation is said in this fourth chapter. So there are 34 sutras that are dedicated to it. In this chapter, in fact, he says that there can be obstacles, and how to deal with these obstacles is also mentioned. Okay, the concept of time is also dealt with in this chapter. So this is an overview of sage Patanjali's Yogasutras, and I have given you a flavor of these Yogasutras. I truly hope that you all study this Yogasutras in detail, because it is a game changer, as I always call it, and it's a life changer. Okay, so after this we will do the Bhagavad Gita, and we are also going to do Mandukya Upanishad. So stay tuned. And what I would like to tell you all is that whenever you are listening to this, see if you all have any questions at the end, and we will also deal with the questions in the question answer session. Okay, bye for now, and stay tuned and stay happy, my dear students.